Hello everybody and good morning and welcome to That's Football. Antonio Conte, you're fired. It's been done. It happened late last night. We'll react to it this morning. Antonio Conte has been fired, let go by mutual consent by Spurs. But we spoke about this last week and I had a lot of people. And I suppose the question is it the right thing to do? Where do Spurs go from here? Luis Enrique's been mentioned, Nagelsmann, De Zerbi, even Pochettino. We'll talk about that. But I had a few people messaging me last week. It was a busy week last week. We're in Dublin and Manchester and stuff. But I got told last Monday from a very good source that Conte was gone. Effectively, he'd removed himself from WhatsApp groups with players, which is what they do have. I mean, football is quite simple, really. I think we idolise these players and managers as, having these ultra intricate systems, and actually most of them are just in the same WhatsApp group talking about stuff. So Conte had removed himself last weekend, and Spurs basically let it be known that he would be gone. They were just sorting a severance package, which is, I mean, at the end of the day, it's not massive news. Everyone expected it to happen. I think it had to happen. I think Conte wanted it to happen. In some ways, I would liken this to what Ronaldo did with his Piers Morgan interview. The minute you do that interview, you're doing it because you want out. And ultimately, Man United did move Ronaldo on. It took a bit of time, but they moved him on. And the same thing's happened with Conte. He's done that interview. He's slated the players, he's slated the club, he's slated the hierarchy. He's got to go, and it's took a week of him staying over in Italy while they've sorted out a financial package which is suitable for all. Some people would say he shouldn't get any money. The reality is he's always going to get money, and Spurs would rather just sort it out than go through courts or whatever. So it's gone. Stellini will be the coach until the end of the season, who was Conte's assistant, and he'll be assisted by Ryan Mason, who's, I think, done this job before. And the question for Spurs is whether they can still get top four without Conte, which I think they probably can. We'll look at that in a minute. But on the departure of Conte, it had to happen. It makes sense to happen. He was going to go in the summer anyway. And I think Spurs, yet again, if you're being critical, have wasted another season in their history of not winning trophies, because the Conte situation was very clear from the start of the season that it just wasn't happy. It wasn't happy from both sides. And ultimately, if they got top four, I think that would be quite a good season for Spurs, because they've been drifting since day one. The football's not been great. The project's not been there. And it amazes me that they actually are a club fighting for fourth place, because I think it's been a bit of a waste of a season for Spurs. So if they can salvage fourth place, that would probably not be too bad. And look, I know how it works in this country. There's lots of articles this morning about the turbulent times of Antonio Conte as Spurs manager. Well, you could say it's turbulent, and I think it probably has been. But at the end of the day, he came into the club last season in, what was it, October? So he hadn't had a pre-season, he hadn't had a transfer window. He stabilised the club. He brought in Kulusevski and Bentancur in the January transfer window, and they got top four. They spent a lot of money in the summer. I'm baffled as to what that expenditure was all about. Spence, Richarlison, Bissouma, he just didn't pick them, and you wonder, did he want them? And yet again, they still look like they could get top four with Conte. So I don't know. I mean, my thoughts on Conte is that he did a very good job at Spurs in a very odd situation. I don't think the football was very good this year, but I thought it was good last year. The signings were odd. They never looked like a team that was realistically going to win anything, and yet they could get fourth twice when he's been the manager for the majority of the season. So it's a weird one. But Spurs need to get back to playing good football. I think every club has an ideal, and Spurs want to play good football. They want to be entertained. They don't traditionally win things, so if you're not going to win things, you want to be entertained when you're watching your club, and that's something that Spurs haven't done for a while. They've got big decisions to make. Look, it's very easy to put all the blame on Conte, but I think anybody with a brain knows that a lot of what Conte spoke about was correct. The club does lack ambition. It can't compete with the big teams financially. They've got a fantastic stadium, but they've got a squad that really isn't up to it. And you look at the success of Arsenal, their North London rivals, and they've been very successful without billionaire owners. So Spurs have got issues that they need to look at. One of the big things I'd be looking at as a Spurs fan, if I was a Spurs fan, and we do this a lot with United, is I'd be demanding or trying to find out what the transfer policy is. Are the club buying players for the manager, or is the manager buying players for the club that they want? Because that, to me, as an outsider looking in at Spurs, is priority number one. We saw it with Mourinho. We've seen it with Conte. Money has been spent, but those players don't seem to get used. It seems odd when you look at Conte and Mourinho's history of success that they would buy players then not use them. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. So if I was a Spurs fan, I'd be asking that question. The next step for Spurs is going to be heavily scrutinised. Nagelsmann is available. Luis Enrique is available. You've got to be trying to get one of those two. And if you get one of those two, you're going to have to provide a transfer policy and funds that allow them, one, to bring players in, and two, bring players in that they want to build the project that they want. If they don't and cannot do that, they're going to end up with people like Pochettino, who logically and factually is a step back. It's literally a step back because he's been your manager before. I don't know what Spurs will do. It would be very Spursy to appoint Pochettino when there's two really good managers available. And the interesting thing about Nagelsmann and Luis Enrique is, tell me a club, one club, that's looking for managers of that status. Man United aren't, Chelsea aren't, Liverpool aren't, Man City aren't, Arsenal aren't. There's no big club in England looking for a manager. Bayern Munich aren't. Barcelona aren't, Real Madrid aren't. So that's another three big clubs not looking for big managers. Maybe Real Madrid might do if Ancelotti doesn't win the Champions League, considering they're probably not going to win La Liga. Maybe PSG will look for a manager. But look, are you going to lose Luis Enrique to Real Madrid? No, he's an ex-Barcelona player. Is he going to go to PSG? I don't think has that level of lack of ambition. Nagelsmann, I don't know anything about. Maybe he would like the Real Madrid job. Maybe he would like the PSG job. But there's opportunities for Spurs. And, the Conte time hasn't been great, but it wasn't terrible. And there are opportunities for Spurs to bring in a good manager. What are the Spurs fans going to get subjected to this time? Are they going to try and pretend that Pochettino is the coach that's going to take them to the top when he couldn't do it before? His record against the top four in general is terrible, and the Premier League is stronger than when he left, and football has changed from when he left. I personally think if they bring Pochettino in, they won't be getting top four. And that's something Spurs have got to look at as well. Even if they bring Luis Enrique in, even if they bring Nagelsmann in, Spurs will not be favourites for top four for the next 2 years. They won't. They'll be underdogs for it because you're going to have Man City, probably Arsenal next year, certainly, Manchester United, Liverpool, Chelsea, and maybe Newcastle. Spurs could go into next season as the seventh favourite for the title and top four. So that's where they're coming from. And they've got to get the next decision right. And like many clubs, it's about having the right coach with the right vision and the right backing. And that's what Spurs have got to do. Because whatever you think about Conte or Mourinho, there is that huge question mark about recruitment. That always baffled me with Conte. Like I cannot understand them. I felt that Spurs won the transfer window. I remember saying it on this channel. I thought they'd had a very good transfer window. And then he doesn't pick those players. And I'm like, why buy Basuma and hardly use him? Why buy Richarlison and hardly use him? Why buy Jed Spence and then pick, your man at right back, who I think's absolutely crap? I don't get it. And has he been told that those signings are being made, or has he got any control on it? It's a weird one. And Spurs certainly need a coach that's in tune with their recruitment policy if they are to progress. Anyway, look, thanks everyone for watching this Monday morning. Get your thoughts in below. What should Spurs do next? And what do you think about the Conte departure? I'll speak to you all in a bit.